go live. We're going live. We're going live. We're going live. We're going live. And we're live. We're live. We like that. I have my tasty beverage, which today is an Elysian Space Dust, which is I guess you'd call it kind of a craft beer. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a bite. It's an IPA. Definitely has a little bit of a bite. It's something you sort of want to drink slowly. So sorry guys, I've been kind of absent for like 3 days. Let me tell you, the last video that I did, I probably bored some of you to tears by talking about my approach to the market and trading strategies, right? And looking at stuff like this, looking at Bitcoin, and it's been a really fascinating journey for me, so I won't bore you with too much of it today, except to say that the reason I've been absent the last few days live streaming is because I got a bee in my bonnet. And the bee in my bonnet is this. Are there principles that one can learn? It's kind of like when I learned to use OpenToonz. When I learned to use OpenToonz, or when I learned to, especially Blender, back in around the year 2000 when I learned Blender, I went through a period of, it took about 2 weeks to a month where I really immersed myself with the determination to, freaking figure it out, right? And I've been kind of going through the same thing in regard to what you would call technical trading. So technical trading is trading based on data you see on charts, as opposed to information more like what we see over here, where we can actually look at if we pick this company, say, we can see fundamentals about them, like how their earnings are trending and different things about the company. And there's other websites, obviously, where you can get these sorts of, dig deeper. But my question is, can you be in the midst of a very long downtrend, which is what we see going on right now with Bitcoin? This is over weeks. It's a real strong downtrend. Is there a way within this type of a climate to actually make profits? And what I've learned is, indeed there is. And so we'll leave it at that. It's really been a lot of fun. It's taken some time, actually probably about a month of just testing theories and finding indicators that give me the information I need. But the bottom line is figuring out how you can grab these uptrends even within a larger downtrend in order to make profits. So yeah, quite interesting stuff. So anyway, yeah. But back to work. We still have a cartoon to produce. Am I right? So I've been working on this shot here. I need to turn on the preview here. Okay. So this shot really definitely needs a little help. But this shot, it goes by fast. I mean, there's a lot going on in this shot. And then her hand comes up to grab that sword. So we've got this situation where it's funny talking about testing trading strategies, actually. This is kind of similar. I basically, using myself as a guinea pig, I once again went back and said, okay, does it make sense to try to pack multiple shots into a single scene, a Tahoma scene? And I would say at this point my judgment would be basically no, and the reason is the stupidest reason in the world, which is this. There's something about my style of animating such that when I get a longer sequence like this that's in a half-finished state, for some reason, hey Inio-san, for some reason, that has a strong proclivity to shut down my motivation. It's really strange. When I work on one shot at a time and the compilation of them into a story happens in the edit, happens over here in Vegas, I don't have that problem. But for some reason, when I've got something that's kind of like half of it's in pencil test form and half of it's inked, you know, and there's 3 backgrounds to paint, yada yada yada. Something about that stacking up of responsibilities that you just like need to get to, right? There's something about that that tends to diminish my enthusiasm. And hey, I mean, come on, this is life. The emotional aspects of the work you do matter. They don't necessarily have to dictate all your choices, but it's worthwhile considering how you negotiate with your proclivities so that you discover a working method that works for you, that you can not only be productive but also have fun. I mean, it's finding that sweet spot. So for me, generally having a situation like this where we've got a bunch of shots, it's like every time I've done it, I wind up going, ah, shoot, you know, I wish I hadn't have done that. I should have done it once. In some shadows, so I'm just gonna kind of do it this way. And actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do in this case is I'm actually going to put the shadows over the foreground as well. And so that means I can't mask, I can't post-production filter to lock the, probably want a little change. So, hey Soda Pop, welcome. I haven't heard from you in a while, my friend. Let's see here, hitting the B key. Okay, so let me see what Soda Pop had to say. Have you taken your done shots and put it through free software flow frames? It makes sequences very much smoother, not employing anything. Just thought it would be useful. Taking your shots and put it through flow frames. Soda Pop, I have no idea what flow frames even is. So I'll go ahead and, as a courtesy, look on my other screen. Okay, so this is what Soda Pop's talking about here today. Fast video interpolation for any. Okay. Okay, so I will tell you this. Whether you realize it or not, you've actually introduced a very interesting question that I think for some people would be worth a look. In most cases, it's not. Okay, so here's the deal. If you go to the freeware video processing tool AVI Synth, about 8-10 years ago, I posted a video on YouTube showing how an AVI Synth script you can do exactly what Flow Frames does. Okay, so what it does, and if you're using live action, so the normal case, the normal use case would be I shot a shot for a show or a movie or something, and I want to turn it into slow motion. I want to somehow magically interpolate frames that are in between the actual frames I shot. Now, if you want to do that with live action, I'll give you this tip. Here's the key thing you want to remember. When you shoot your video footage, make sure you have a high shutter speed. Don't use the normal 1/48th of a second shutter speed, because that's going to give you natural motion blur. And when you slow motion it down, you have slow motion on something that's already got motion blur baked into it. So you want to shoot it like sports footage. You want to have high shutter speed so that every single frame is a freeze frame. And then add motion blur in post if you want to. That gives you a really strong level of protection, which came up in the last movie I produced. Because we were shooting in Healed by Grace 2, we were shooting live action footage of people riding horses in a horsemanship contest, basically. And the algorithmic slow motion backfired a little bit because the footage I shot actually had that natural motion blur already baked into it. So it made my job harder. And this is what this is doing. It's algorithmically looking at every single picture in the frame, and it's basically interpolating frames of video in between. Quite useful as a way to smooth out animation. I would never do it. I would never do it. And I'll tell you why. Number one, if I wanted smooth animation like this, I'd be doing smooth animation like this. I'm embracing the aesthetic of 8 frames per second animation for the most part. The only exceptions would be a situation which we may have coming up soon, where a character's like, shaking or something, where you just can't get the effect unless you bump it up to 12 frames per second. But other than that, I'm sticking to the 8 frames per second aesthetic. So if I took what I've done and used either, the easy solution would be to go into Tahoma and just introduce keyframes. But if you have hand-drawn cells that you want to smooth out, then it looks like this could be a very useful tool. Nothing wrong with that. It could be quite useful. And it would be interesting to see what it looks like. It could be if I tried it, I'd like it. Who knows? Tools like this in practice, what you find usually is that with a situation like this, what you find is a situation like this tool would completely backfire. I'll guarantee you. I would be willing to bet you $100 that if you tried it on this, the results would just look stupid. Well, okay, I shouldn't say stupid. What would happen is they'd give you a result that at best looks like an in-between frame that's motion blurred, because the result algorithmically would be so poor that you would have to blur it just to hide the fact that it looks so stupid, which is fine. You can do that in animation. If things are moving fast, I've said this a million times, you can get away with murder in terms of your tweens and in terms of the quality of your drawings. It literally doesn't matter if everything's happening so fast that you can't see the fact that it looks bad, right? By the way, here I'm going to turn on I'm going to turn on an onion skin so that I can actually morph between these two. So yeah, a software like that, it'd be fun to maybe try, and check it out. It might be useful. Just depends on what you're trying to do. It's all good. In this case, I would say let's just use the magnet tool and see what happens if we just go like that. Yeah, see? With vector levels, we can kind of squish them around a little bit. So that's kind of helpful. Alright, so, ba-doop. There we go. And so this is going to stay on the screen to there. And now what we've got to do, let me see here. If she's flipping around, she's turning into the light. So this is pretty much a backlit situation, kind of. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give her a rim light just to be nice. Sun. And stupid old OBS needed to reconnect. Okay, so let me see. Very easy to use and it works great. A lot of the pro anime guys use it. You know what? If it makes your job and the quality of your work better, it's certainly worth a look. Gives you slow or fast, multiple speed videos. Pick what you like best. Right. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give you a background. It's clear to me how it works, and it's a very useful thing in all kinds of media production. If put it this way, what you're going to find is if something moves from here to here, it's going to work really well, and if something does this, it's going to work really poorly. That's what tools like that. It's always been true. And by the way, I will tell you this, that it's often the case that like Soda Pop, people will point out to me some newfangled tool that seems to do something like this that's really cool. And usually what I've seen in the last few months is those newfangled tools are actually somebody taking technology like I described 8 years ago on my YouTube channel that you could do with AVI Synth if you were, if you wanted to really grok it out and learn how to do it. They're taking those types of technologies that have been around for quite a while, at least 10 years, and they're packaging it in a way that makes it just, it's an easier interface. You just click a few buttons, set a few preferences, and see how it works. So it's certainly a useful thing. Shaken, I just use function editor on expression with random. Works great for shakes and wiggles. Okay, that could be used. Yeah? Yes. Inio-san, correct. I mean, the general trend you see in anime is that everything tends to be 8 frames per second until you get to a situation where there's some action going on, and then you just judiciously kick it up a notch where it makes sense to do so. And for you as the animator, there's a wonderful trade-off. And the trade-off is you got to draw more pictures, but on the other hand, they don't have to look very good because they're moving so fast that it just looks like a blur to the audience anyway. So finding that balance has frightening correlations to what I see in price action in the marketplace. Actually, I find it amazing how these things all sort of overlap in terms of no, it's crazy how true that is. So anyway, yeah, I've been gone, Tom, for the last couple days because I've really been whenever you're grokking something new and you're needing to test, how is this going to work? I'm getting ideas. Literally, I'll give you an example that plagued me just last night because I did a short-term trade. Okay, so you got this situation. I guess I'll just take a moment and show it and you guys will forgive me if you find this completely boring. But the situation we had was pretty much this. If you look at this last night, this is literally last night, we had this situation where you've got a clear uptrend, and within the 1 hour chart, you had this nice uptrend. So what you're saying is, okay, this is moving up, so can we grab one of these little cycles right here? Can we get some profit? Well, what you find is, so what we were just looking at is actually this, but now we're looking at it in 15-minute increments. So I actually traded this last night. And what I found was, this has been true, is consistently this range within this candle, the complete price range you see, oftentimes when you make a buy on Robinhood, the price you get will actually be here. It'll actually be half again higher. So you have about a $70, $80 penalty with your buy, even though Robinhood isn't taking commissions or anything like that. And I was really trying to grok out, well, why would that be? Why would that happen? Well, what I figured out is, I think what actually happened is you've got sellers that want to sell, but there's an abundance of them and there aren't buyers there waiting to buy. And so then the exchange has to then tick down the price in order to attract new buyers. And this type of dynamic is something you're seeing all the time. But if the sellers did a limit order where they don't want to sell unless it's at a certain price, then they go into a queue, and the real-time price you're seeing isn't actually the price you're going to pay because they have to satisfy those queued up orders once the buyers show up. And all this stuff is happening so fast that you can't see it. Even if you look at the 1 second chart, you don't get to see what's really going on. Okay? And so I actually spent some time this morning and last night thinking about, well, what's really going on there? Because and this sort of informs my process. So that's just one example of the sort of thing where I'm really sitting down thinking, people have to deal with this all the time. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. In terms of the results they get. So if anyone cares, hey Darren, welcome to the party. So if anyone cares, the methodology I'm using has proven to be consistently, I either lose a couple dollars or I make like 10 or 20. And this is in a real short time frame. It's a little risky though, because you're gambling with about $1,000. But the thing is, you're only going to lose your $1,000 if you're like really, really, really stupid. Because you would have to, the only reason you'd lose your money is because you're moving up and then things turn down and then you get emotional. You start saying, well, I'm sure it'll bounce back. Oh, it always goes up. You start telling yourself a story. And that's really stupid. You don't want to start telling yourself stories. What you want to do is stay anchored to your plan. And it's like playing golf or tennis or something. The discipline of that I find to be quite fun. I really have been enjoying it. Plus you make a little money too, right? So that's kind of just bonus. So again, sorry if that's like completely off topic and boring to somebody, but Uh, it is what I've been doing because we want to. I just, like I said, I got to be in my bonnet. I'm like, I want to learn how I can make sure that I make profits even when the overall market is trending down. Is it possible? And what I'm finding is absolutely it's possible, but you have to be very disciplined. You cannot get emotional. You can't tell yourself lies. You've got to trust your plan, work your plan, and what happens is you win more often than you lose. And it's great. It's a super cool thing. You know, if you're into that type of thing. Okay, dude, that's not animation. Okay. We'll turn this off. So, all right. So the thing I'll consider myself spanked though, because the one thing that is glaringly obvious is whenever I talk about this stuff, no one says anything. Like everybody goes, at least as far as the whole topic, nobody's. You guys, you don't care. You don't care. Believe me, I get it. That's fine. Okay, so here we've got a situation where we probably want to get a little dramatic with our shadows. It does good in sampling. Has a link to the nightlies on the official site. Yeah, but Tom, you're making a good point. You're actually making my point for me. I do not see this as rolling the dice at all. I've been extremely rigorous in my study and in my testing, and what I've found is that I've so the most risky thing you can do is a very short term attempt at making profit, because you got to take a fairly large sum of money, like $1,000, in order to make $20. That's the bad news. The good news is you're trying to make $20 in half an hour. What you got to realize though is you're not going to lose your $1,000. It's literally impossible. The worst that can happen is you'll lose $20. And so if you do that over and over, then it can start to add up, right? Because the price action just doesn't change that fast. It does not. By the way, I'm actually thinking. And so most of my trading is on very long-term time frames. What I've been doing is devising a strategy for that spans days, weeks, and months. But I'm testing what I'm learning in these very short time frames. And based on that, in the last couple days with different things I've been testing, I've seen that with Bitcoin and Ethereum, I've been able to either lose a couple dollars or make a few. Never lose a few, never lose a lot, never. Because the only way that would happen is if you're stupid. Because you're in denial of what's happening on. Yeah, so it's not rolling the dice at all. There's a lot of underlying data that you're looking at in order to make a wise decision. I really emphasize that. It's not. It's informed. Okay, yeah, we need to do this. We need to go scene settings and turn on this so that we get the. There we go. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. No, I think I would love to, if as I'm learning, you know, there's certainly a part of me that's tempted to kind of share what I'm learning so other people can benefit from it. But obviously this isn't really the place to do that. Not so much. Not so much. Okay. Yeah, you were talking about, wasn't it Ethereum you said you did, Maria? So the idea of letting it ride and hoping it turns around. The thing is that in the long run, normally it does. That is true, because if you look at the if you look at the Dow, you know, over the long term, it always goes up. always. So that becomes a pragmatic assessment. Well, how long do I have to wait? Obviously, you can't predict the future, so the question becomes, how long do you have to wait? If it's a couple $100, as you say, and you have as much time as you need to wait, and it's not a big deal because there's not much at risk, then wait. You know, that's what you should do, is just wait and wait till it flops back. What we're seeing right now, okay, so I mean, I kind of talked about this the other day. The problem that you have here on YouTube is that there's people who I think recently lost kind of a lot of equity because of the downturn with Bitcoin. Now, those of us who are trying to be wise understand that this downturn was absolutely necessary. It was not only necessary, but it was quite predictable, actually. Very consistent with trends that you would expect. So all the grousing about why it happened is just silly to me. We saw it coming. We exited. End of story. And the people who didn't exit because they were being emotional, and they're like, well, you know, we're kind of hoping. We bought Bitcoin at 60,000, and we really hope it's going to flip around and actually keep going even higher. The thing is, it is going to go higher. But at this point, it's probably going to take at minimum a couple months just to start going condition. Let me just pull out here and she kind of pokes in over top of the shadows. So I guess it's kind of important that the shadow be married to the character. And it looks like we don't have any other animation keyframes, so we're safe to do so. Meaning, we'll bring up the stage schematic, and we'll take column 5 and make it a child of column 2 so that the shadows scale when the character scales. That should do the trick. And now, ba-doop, there we go. Good. Okay, so let's we're getting close here on this particular sequence to being able to render, although we got one little bit we need to do. Yeah. So we got that zoom in, that push in, and now we've got this. Okay, so now we got to rock and roll on this stuff. Okay, that does not really belong. I'm going to just erase that. What we do need is this drawing. So what I'm going to do for now is just turn the background off. So let's go to here. I'm sorry, I turned just frame by frame animation. We're not going to use the animation tools because it's changing shape. It's going like this, right? So because her hand is moving and changing shape as it clasps, we're not going to get any benefit from using animation tools, so we might as well just deal with it one frame at a time, right? And if we're going to do that, the original sketch, we can turn that back off. Or no, we need it on because this is our guide. So what we need to do is turn the background back on, but turn it down so that we can see where those blades actually are, because they're kind of in the wrong place compared to what the sketch was. Doesn't matter, I just need to make sure I plan on that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and draw her hand like this. I'll go ahead and trace, and then I'll just move it from the current location to where I ultimately want it to be. Okay, so now I'll just go take the selection tool and just move the hand over here. That's all I need to do. Okay, tell you what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C. So let's pop that there. We'll make a duplicate, and then we'll see if we can, I guess we'll delete that and hit Control V to get that back in there, and then let's turn back on the onion skins so we can get this nice tween going on right here. Okay, and this really probably should be deleted. so it's not gumming up the works. Okay, so now what we want to do is have a big push forward. So I'm going to go S key and Control V. I'm going to put this back in here. Now this is again one of those motion blurs type situations. What I want to do is, yeah, I think I'll go ahead and expand out her fingers here. B key. So let's just kind of cut that off, and then there's her garment. Zoom in and just kind of open this up a little bit. So we are looking, you know, into Z space, if you will. Her fingers are foreshortened. This really should be corrected. Gotta be careful so it doesn't. I actually think it's gonna be easy to accidentally make this look like older hands than I intended. So here, I think what we'll do is just kind of follow this pretty closely. Her hand needs to be slightly bigger than what I had in the sketch. And I think I'm going to scale it. We're not actually going to see the sword pulled off the shelf. Okay, so what I'm thinking is we got this hand. We'll turn the onion skins off. This hand, this hand. Yeah, so this needs to be scaled down. This is obviously too big. So she's kind of reaching in. That happens pretty fast. I think that's going to work. Let's go here. Yeah, that works. Okay, cool. So she's going to reach up and grasp the sword. All right, checking the messages here really quick. There's some chatter about that on the GitHub feed channel and Discord. So, okay, so yeah, downloadable. Never understood why all the devs left OpenToonz. All my peers always. That is kind of weird. So there's been a migration away from OpenToonz development? I don't know anything about that. So some of the key people involved in creating OpenToonz have left the project, it sounds like. That's most unfortunate. All right. Fill tool. Fill tool. Fill tool and fill tool. And now we've got to have the mid-tone for her garment. And then we might as well just turn this off now. That's not helping. We can go ahead and turn this back up. Wait a second. How did I manage that? Look what I just did. Okay, that's weird. How the heck did I manage that? I'm stupid. Why? Oh, why? I'm a little weirded out here because I was tracing over top of the background, but when I must have missed something obvious. I'm guessing that it might have to do with the Animate tool. So the best option available for me is to take this and scale that back, or I should say reposition it to there. And then take this. We got that smash zoom. And here what we really want is kind of a reset. So I'm thinking that if I go Control C, actually I need to go Control C, put this here, Control C, Control V. Yeah, I may be experiencing a dyslexia moment here. Nope, this is what I thought. Okay, cool. So that gets me in my starting point, and then here the position's a little off actually, so that looks better. Okay. Okay, we're fixed. I would also say perhaps since that's locked there and that looks fine, I'm thinking maybe this hand situation should be scaled up just a bit. And then we'll just reposition it. We'll just get everything kind of more where it belongs. Okay. Okay, now we can deal with the shadows. Okay. Back over here to the shadow level, and this can be cranked back up. And now, okay, so Rodney doesn't code. Rodney, yeah, I remember seeing Rodney around. He's been around the whole time there's been an OpenToonz. Rodney has been there on the chats and forums, whatever you want to say. Only Shun and Rodney left. The OpenToonz SDK. Yeah, when I explored 2 different times when I explored just going ahead and building OpenToonz, what I found was that with OpenToonz it was dependency hell, and so even if you followed all the instructions religiously, it still wouldn't build. And then when I tried with Tahoma, I happened to be trying to build it on Linux, and once I followed all the instructions and it didn't work, I asked Jeremy, and he said, yeah, I don't know anything about building it on Linux. I thought he was a lot more closely tied in with kind of everything that was going on with Tahoma. So I was kind of like, oh, all right, screw this. This is going to be too frustrating. So we'll just kind of like skip it. I looked at the updates actually on Krita yesterday. I actually like that. It jerks back. That's actually kind of cool. And you know, I think that they're doing some nice improvements to the brush engine and the integration of my paintbrushes, and you know, there's some cool things going on. But basically, I don't think there's anybody in the Krita development that really seriously is into the idea of ramping up the animation tools. I just don't see it. So I don't expect, even though there's some chatter about version 5 kind of being an improvement in that regard, I can't find anything specific about it. Nothing. All I do know is that what animation is capability is there to a degree has actually been turned off in recent builds. So like doing opacity tweening is gone in the like nightly builds or whatever. So on balance, a bit. Had some discussion with me about the plugins on how cannot deploy locally. Yeah, we can build, but they don't get picked up correctly. Okay, guys, I think we might have a somewhat reasonable scene here. I'm going to go ahead and render the darn thing and see what we have. So let's jump over yonder. This shot is bugging me. There's some things about this shot that I think I could have done much better. This. Okay, and then of course we need to cut away from that quicker. So in my editor, I'm just kind of saying, ooh, once she grabs this, we're done. Because once she grabs it, we need to transition to here, where she reaches down to open the tent up. Okay, this is good, guys. I think we got it. Again, I'm going to come back to this shot, not this one. this shot, I'm like really sure I'm going to be making some tweaks to that shot. Another aspect here is we certainly could punch this up a bit with some eye blinks. So let's punch it up with some eye blinks. Probably don't need to be in preview mode or whatever they call it. Okay, yeah. Let's do this. Let's just do this the simplest way possible, which is let's just introduce a new level. Let's make it oh heck, just for fun we'll make it a vector level, why not? Okay, and then what I'm going to do is zip in here and just draw a shape like that. Okay, and because I'm using a vector level, I can go in and just keep stacking up on top of it. All right, and now I'll just hit the R key and turn that into my skin color, except there is one little caveat, which is in order for that to look right, we need to actually turn the shadows off, because the shadows are skewing the color. Okay, so now we can turn the shadows back on. And so will that sword be animated in future shots? It's very detailed now. Put around, are we going to animate the sword or not? And ultimately I decided that it just didn't matter that much. So yes, the sword will be animated in later scenes. I don't think it's that important to animate it here. So there will be, oops, well fortunately I can just go ahead and do what you would do in the Blender grease pencil or elsewhere, and or with the Krita or so much lately that I'm starting to forget things like the names of tools or hotkeys or whatever. Probably not a great thing. Okay, so maybe we'll go ahead and allow a little bit of a shadow underneath as well. What the heck? There's no great crime in it, is there? Yeah, so okay, let's just do a quick render and kind of see if a one frame blink is probably going to favor the feel we're trying to get here. Yep, one frame blinks, golden. This is going to be easy. Okay, so now that Jeremy's back, maybe he'll bring more development to Tahoma. Maybe, yeah, for sure. I wish those guys would share their code with OpenToonz. I've gotten the impression, Soda Pop, from what I've seen in little comments people have made, that the problem is that, and maybe for good reason actually, but the problem is that the OpenToon guys, unless it's a really, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, this is my read on the situation, is unless it's a really substantive improvement to the program that's also very battle tested and, you know, it's a secure addition to the code, they're conservative in their adoption of coding ideas, you know. And so in a sense Tahoma, or maybe the I would guess maybe the what is it, the I'm having a brain fart. I want to say the Minerva project, whatever it is. It starts with an M. Minerva, something like that. That project, you know, they've got a build of OpenToonz that they do, and you know, why not let all the bugs get sorted out over there before we roll it into the official code base? I mean, that might be the thinking. It's probably not the stupidest approach ever. Okay, so here we're going to do the same thing again. So, boom. Boom. So easy. And it adds so much sparkle and life to your show that you're silly if you don't do it. Just add a few judicious eye blinks here and there to punch it up, especially if a head is turning or, you know, that type of thing. So I'm just going to keep her simple, baby. Keep her simple, Sherlock. It adds a lot of character to your shots. Alright, so we got that. But yes, this is very painterly. Now, this is actual size, and I thought about actually maybe adding an effect where once it does the punch zoom, that you had a glow kind of thing. You could do that. I don't think it's probably necessary, but you could. So now here, I'm going to put the blink here, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to worry about the shadows. We'll bake some shadows into it, I suppose, as I've been doing, but whoops. Definitely have been finding that for quick and dirty, well, anything that involves solid shapes, I finally found a place in my workflow for the vector levels, put it that way. Okay, so now the question becomes, let's say this is, we'll just call it blinks, B-L-I-N-X for blinks. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is, since we're about to hit the animation, let's go like this, so that if we add another one here, Control C, if we just go Control V, it'll actually be scaled correctly. Boom, boom. So how does this look? I'm not sure. Not so sure. I love it. It should be interesting maybe to smack it in the middle. Not bad. Not bad. Not necessarily Oscar worthy, but not bad. So let's go back over here. To Tom's point, I don't think it's critical that a simplified, cartoonier version of the sword be provided here. However, you know, you got to remember the audience, when we go to another scene, which is coming up soon, okay, so let's just go here. Look, here's what happens. So Mel's out there, he scurries up the hill, and then he sees her come out, and then she sees the same path of the avenue of exit that he did. So she grabs it. Okay, so when they encounter each other, right here, you see the sword, and here she's kind of sticking it in his face, right? So, obviously, a cartoonish version of the sword is necessary. I just don't, I don't think it's important that we cue the audience with that now in the close-up where we first see the painted version of it, because obviously, when we get to here, they know it's the same sword, right? You know, it's just not the kind of thing I think you need to spell out for people. They're a little smarter than that. So I would say we're good with what we have here. Okay, honestly, the shadows may be overdone. The other thing, though, to again, back to Tom's point, is that it might be useful, because this is a separate background painting. This is not just a blown up version of this. I blew it up and then painted over it. So maybe tightening up these edges and stuff so it just doesn't look quite so painterly wouldn't be the worst idea ever. Okay, so now back to Tahoma development. I'm gonna go back here a little bit on the chat to where Tom asked the question about the sword. Now the journey's back. Blah, 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 blah. Kind of like OpenToonz and Blender for Tahoma2D. Isn't that what the nightlies are for, though? You mean parallel releases, fixes, current? Not want to share his code. He got really mad with me for porting just fixes from 2D. He got really mad with you for porting fixes from Tahoma2D to OpenToonz. Well, Soda Pop, I'm going to weigh in on that one. With this caveat. I don't know the situation. I don't know the conversation. I know that there's always, in every scenario in life, there's always more to the story. So when you say he got mad, I don't know what really happened. But if we can take your story at face value as being completely accurate, I would say that's pretty stupid. That's pretty ridiculous. Why would you care if somebody used your fixes to punch up the originating software? That's just silly. Correct. Yeah, Tom sums it up well. Tahoma has more freedom. OT has more production reliability. Yes. Marevna, money was offered to do that work. Well, Soda Pop, I'm glad to know that you and Tom both are well acquainted with the code and have done successful builds. Because when I have an idea that's worth exploring in terms of improving the software, maybe I'll talk to you guys. And actually, if I ever get into it, I don't think it's going to happen because I got too much going on. But I mean, I did a lot of C++ programming back in the day, and I really enjoy it. I would definitely want to lean on you guys to sort of basically clone your whole setup. You know, let's create a complete clone so I don't have to screw around with dependency hell and guessing about why it won't build and going through that whole thing. It would actually be cool to have a Linux appliance or something that's all set up that builds successfully, so you can just focus on understanding and building on the code. That would be really cool. Just like that. I don't know the people involved too well yet. I disagree now that MJ controls Tahoma2D. I think it's whatever he wants. OpenToonz has only Shun now, who to my knowledge has never turned down a decent P. Okay. That's good. I don't know the people involved too well. Yeah, right. People are people. It was he just lagged onto it, or on it, so we thought he was not interested, which in truth he was not. Communication, man, it's the key to everything, man. The key to everything in business, in life, is being an excellent communicator. And it's hard, especially with emails and forums and things like that. It is so difficult to actually be clear. Dave, I think I was thinking about continuity and foreshadowing. Seeing the sword in a simple form, we might not know right away it's a prop, not static. Well, but at the same time, you see her grab it. I mean, so she knows she's grabbing the sword. So regarding the painterly tone of the sword, just so the sword and the hand feel more in the same world, so to speak. The clear lines of the hands are at odds with the sword outline. Okay, so build code is step one on the staircase. I don't know C++ or the third-party frameworks yet. Now that's where I could help, actually, if I had the time to deal with it. Yeah, using an Oracle VirtualBox is a great idea. I actually run my business on the machine in the studio. Runs VirtualBox running Windows XP because my contact manager and my version of QuickBooks are all from like the 1990s. You know, and there's some really stable programs that like never crash. Act for Windows and QuickBooks from the 90s. You know, we're talking 1995 era, so we're talking really old software. Still work phenomenally well. But they don't run on 64-bit Windows. So, you know, it seems stupid, but for me, it's always it's a value proposition. I can see the point of upgrading your software, but if I'm going to upgrade my software, then give me a good reason to do so. Okay. Okay. So we have a problem here. The problem is this is parented to that, which means anything we did with the swords on the vector level isn't going to propagate. So I guess I'm going to have to do it this way. So here's what I'm going to do, guys, to address your idea or your concern. Is I'm going to go ahead and create a vector level here. And let's just play with this for a moment and see what we can do. So I've never really tried something quite like this before. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trace over this to get a really crisp shape. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is sample the... That's weird. Why would it, when it's in render mode, still look black? That's really strange. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got a crisp version of it, and now let's just go ahead and play with saying, well, all right, what if for the purposes of illustration, we go ahead and create this simplified version of it. And you know, we could always take the layer and turn down the whoops, that was a boo-boo. We can always turn down the opacity of the level and actually let it blend in with the painting just to see. I suspect that's probably not going to look great, but this is actually kind of interesting. At half opacity, what you're getting is where the colors overlap, you're actually getting a nice effect that this could be quite useful. All right, let's do it. So now let's kind of balance this out with kind of the shadow area like so. And now we really want to turn this opacity way, way down so that we can build on it like this. We can start letting it build up. This is where vectors can actually be quite a lot of fun. Especially if you if you build something up by defining its local color, and then you use these transparencies to punch it up in layers, build up the tonality. It makes it easier to limit your palette for one thing, which is almost always a good thing for most people, I would say. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a specular. Just let this. So this is pretty obnoxious, but I'm going to go ahead and just punch up that edge. Now this is kind of fun. I mean, I like it. All right, and now kind of ease that back. Okay, not horrible. Let's see how that looks. I'm actually going to go ahead and render it and just see what we have. Ooh, it disappeared. Sorry guys, that was stupid. That was a stupid attack right there. There we go. Sorry. I think to Tom's point, that actually might be an improvement. It looks a little cartoonier. It looks a little flatter. I wouldn't say it's definitively amazing. And of course, you could do the same thing to the handle. And probably should. But yeah, I mean, I would call it an improvement. Okay, so I was thinking about kind of build code. Okay, Oracle. Yeah, got it. Nice. I'm doing VirtualBox to control the environment separate from my. Well, exactly. That's one of the best reasons to use a sandboxed environment for sure. Let's take this color. This is sort of the mid-tone. So let's grab that. Smack this over top of it. So again, we're going to get this nice crisp edge. And now, if we're following our methodology, we actually just go back to our black color. Like that. And again, maybe 2 layers to build up a little bit of dimensionality. Same thing with our highlight. So this is actually, I've been really impressed with how well this works as a, that was the wrong color, sorry guys. I guess I'll just redo it. As a methodology for building up background paintings in a way that does preserve that more cartoony aesthetic, this is quite a good way to do it. I'm going to make a duplicate of this and make it even more transparent so that I can really build this up kind of one little layer of highlight at a time. I like the look of it. It feels pretty good. And I like the way you can kind of go through and just add a little bit of this and that. Not sure I love what I just did there, but pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then here you'd probably want to come in with a little bit of specular. Little bit of specular. Okay. Boom. Render that, and I'll bet you that's going to feel pretty good. Learning multiple software for the same task can be a good way to define new features. Yep. Well, the reason it's really good for people that are learning is that it's a more sane approach to drawing, because all you actually have to do is get the silhouette. I mean, that's really what you're talking about doing. You're saying, okay, let's draw a silhouette of something that I want to draw. I say, okay, actually, in most cases, to do the silhouette and then maybe 2 levels of value, like maybe a little indication here. I don't know what this is, a loaf of bread or something, but so now you're thinking about the way the light hits the thing. You're not thinking so much about the symbols in your brain interpreting what you see because you know what it is, right? You're actually just focusing on what they call right brain style drawing, where you're literally just drawing what you see. And the reality is, for most drawing or painting, limiting your range of colors and your range of values is like always a good thing, right? Always a good thing. So beginners always introduce too much contrast, and I certainly do it myself sometimes too, even now, but you know, you tend to introduce way too much contrast and way too much of a palette. Okay, let's see if Dave has an opinion about motion capture on a rigged character for 2D. Oh boy, is there anything I don't have an opinion about, Tom? Really? Okay, so yeah, my opinion would be this. I was actually developing a CGI cartoon back in the 2008, 2009 time frame, and we set it up in both Hash Animation Master and Blender. What we did was we set up 2 cameras at 90 degrees to each other. So if you're looking down on the room, you got these cameras that are positioned like 90 degrees apart. And then, of course, the actor's right in the center of the room. So you got cameras with the same, you know, lens settings or whatever, 90 degrees apart. We actually brought those into Blender. And we set up a rig. And by using a bone naming convention that was standardized, we could actually take that rig, make a copy of it, change all the bone sizes so that the whole limb length relationships and stuff were completely different. So what we could do is, then what we would do is, what we found was that if you animated the bone rig only once per second, it looked really, really good, because the interpolated keyframes smoothed out the motion, and it looked really, really good. And we found that using mocap in that way was super economical, super fast. All you had to do is just put the 2 background images in Blender and look at you know, a right side view and a front view, and then just get it kind of sized up on your screen properly so that you could then do the animation. And the poor man's motion capture worked incredibly well. Now, in the real world, usually when people do motion capture, it doesn't look that great. And the reason it doesn't look that great is because the granularity of data that they're capturing is actually too great. I've talked about this before, but the reason it looks stupid a lot of times, especially in games, like in video games, is because the mocap actors, you know, they feel like they need to do something. So in a context of the real world where if you actually had actors in a group and you were shooting a shot, you'd say, hey Bob, you're kind of in the background, maybe it's a group scene. So you're just there and you're kind of listening intently to what character A or B is saying, let's say. Well, if Bob stands there and goes like this, wow, I wonder I wonder what they think. Wow, what I'm listening to is really having a big impact on me. Well, the problem is Bob is not the character. Bob is not what you want people to be looking at in that shot. Bob is in the background. Okay, now if we're going to do another shot where we cut to a close-up of Bob because there's a reason to that's informed by the script, then fine. But the problem is your mocap actors always feel like they need to be doing something, which kind of makes sense because what are you paying them for? And so you just have this ridiculous tendency to have this character drift that just looks utterly stupid. I mean, I've seen it in all kinds of video games where the background characters, well, you know, you're kind of in that thing where you're getting ready to go to the next level or whatever, and the characters are sitting there going like this. They're just floating around. It's so stupid. It looks completely ridiculous, and there is no scenario where it looks good ever. So it's very much a case of having the cart pushing the horse, right? Instead of the horse should be the storytelling, and the cart is the technology that's so damn cool. Well, and the problem is and this is why everybody was obsessed with water and fur back around the turn of the 2000s, because it became possible, right? It's possible now, so we all want to do it. It was a real, you know, became an obsession, you know, because somebody creates a show or a movie or something, or a commercial even, where a technique, like bullet time, you know, with the Matrix. Once bullet time happened, now everybody wants bullet time in their TV commercials. So you'd see TV commercials where everybody's doing bullet time, and it becomes the flavor of the week kind of thing. So yeah, you're right. You know, acting is acting, and technology is technology. And if the technology serves the acting, then the cart's pulling the horse. If the technology is driving the acting, it will always be bad. You might get away with it. There might be plenty of situations where you get away with it. So back to your real question, might be restated this way. Is there any place where it is being done well? And I would say I'm not really sure, but it seems like maybe there may be some mocap being used on the Dragon Prince. I don't know that there is, and I haven't watched it in a while, but it could be that they're using some mocap. And I think if you use it judiciously and the acting is good and makes sense, then it can be a time saver. You know, you just have to pay the price of setting up all your rigs and everything one time. You know, so when I did it, it was a time saver. Now that show never actually got produced. We got a certain ways into it, and then I think at the time I got a bee in my bonnet about doing a live action movie, and so we just shifted our gears in that direction. So it's as a tool, it's not good or bad. Not at all. It's completely how you use it, and you can use it well or you can use it poorly. I'm just commenting on the fact that because technology that's new or cool, when you put technology in the hands of the layman, it's so exciting to be able to do what you can do that you couldn't do before, that of course you're going to overuse it. That's why you're going to see an animation demo reel by some kid where, well, back in the day, the great sin was that kids would just change the colors a little bit and re-render the demo scenes that were shipped with like Lightwave 3D and include it in their demo reel, which is really dumb because everybody in the industry knew those scenes. So you immediately knew that this kid doesn't know what they're doing at all. They're trying to blow their way through, you know, by just re-rendering someone else's work, right? So there's a danger involved in. Okay, so anyway. Let's see. Cameras front and side. Too much continuous motion, complete absent. Yeah, I've had to chastise actors on the set when I was directing to films where, because actors, just as a side note, the thing about actors, and Maria will concur with this, Maria will agree with me on this, is that actors are sensitive souls who are very, very eager to please their director generally. In most cases, the actors really want to do well, and they just want to know, okay, what are you looking for? What do you want? So you have to be a little bit sensitive with actors, so you don't knot them up creatively. You don't want them to get knotted up creatively, because you want them to have fun while they're doing this, while they're on the set. We usually had a pretty positive climate on our movie sets. Okay, so, but you get a situation where you just have the same thing, where they're just moving too much, and especially in a sequence that involves comedy. A lot of times, if I'm going to pick up my stylus, the thing that's important is the hold. And it's very, if people aren't used to it, or they've done a lot of theater but they've never really dealt with the nuance of a camera that's shooting a close-up of them kind of thing, they may miss this. Especially, you're dealing with local actors who don't actually have that much experience other than, school stuff or, theater presentations. So what happens is they do that. Okay, so I pick up the stylus, and maybe in the storytelling, the stylus is actually important in some way, right? And this is what you see. Well, from a storytelling standpoint, it's useless. It's actually less than useless. It's actually a distraction, because the audience doesn't know what the hell that was that they just saw. And so you wind up having to coach the actors. No, if you're going to do it, you pick it up. I'm looking at my webcam in reverse here. So you pick it up, and then you go. So you have to train people to recognize the hold position. Now, if you study Buster Keaton or probably Charlie Chaplin, you're going to see that in a way that, okay, in today's mindset, the aesthetics that we're used to on television and movies and stuff, you're going to think that it's really overdone, probably, because back then, compared to what we do today, it was overdone. But as far as your learning goes, watch Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, and you'll see, like a magician on a stage, when they pick something up, they hold it, and it's usually for a reason, because when they're doing this, they're actually hiding from you the fact that they're doing something else with their other hand that they don't want you to notice, right? So, yeah, motion capture's been a thing for quite a while, frankly. Hey, Eisen's Talent. Okay, so I'm going back over the messages here. I think OpenToonz needs an anti-alias node and also transform to like a Toonz Premium. Okay, Soda Pop, to your point, you can. I've tested this, and you can, on a shot-by-shot basis, or a level-by-level basis, you can crank up the anti-aliasing. So if I go to my level settings, in essence, we have the anti-aliasing node you're talking about. You turn on anti-aliasing, but you need to set the softness really high, like 100. Okay? And then what you'll find is you'll get a greater degree of softening, and I'm not really super well seeing it here, frankly. Oh, stupid. I didn't. There we go. Okay, so there you go. There's non-anti-alias and there's anti-alias. So yeah, you have to set the number pretty high, but you can anti-alias your levels, and it can be helpful for sure. So that's been in the software forever, whether you realize it or not. And so if you're drawing, say, smart raster levels in pencil mode, which means they're not anti-alias, then you'll always want to apply the anti-aliasing. And then, of course, you could take it even a step further in the node editor. You could create a mask with edge detection or something, and then blur it and comp that over. You got some more steps, but that would look better than simply blurring the whole image. You know, it's really the edges where the aliasing occurs where you want to blur and not blur the rest. Now with cartoons it doesn't typically matter because all the areas that are being blurred are actually flat color areas anyway. So you don't see it. You don't see the problem that you would see on live action. So yeah, I mean my opinion would be what you're saying that software needs has been already there for a long time. Okay, so render, and I think I'm going to probably go ahead and move on from... Yeah, there we go. So the blinks, this is actually a good example of what I was talking about with Chaplin and Keaton. The blink is there for a reason, right? If the blink wasn't there, it gives a sense of life to the character that would otherwise not be there, frankly. Okay, I'm going to go back here and Andy Serkis, of course, everybody loves Andy Serkis as far as motion capture goes. He played Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, those who don't know that. That was part of Harry. Okay, so let's go back to Maria's comment. Harryhausen's talent. He made creatures you could feel for as well as appreciate for the technology. And I would say to that, Ray Harryhausen, at the pinnacle of his greatness, he did some really pretty good acting with motion, or with stop motion. And probably it's fair to say that Phil Tippett took it even further. I mean, I think most of the mocap that was, or I should say not mocap, but stop motion that was done, say, in the Star Wars movies like Empire Strikes Back, I think Tippett had a pretty big hand in that. And Phil Tippett's a, you know, pretty dedicated guy. The main thing about the motion capture is shown in the demo. It'd be a huge time saver to get the rough, large movements laid down. Well, yeah, that's why I said when we did it, we only animated every second. So every 24 frames, we would make a move, and we just let Blender interpolate the tweens, and it looked fantastic. They give 100% yes. So motion capture acting must be a thing now. Andy Serkis comes to mind. Well, I mean, you use the word now loosely, since The Lord of the Rings was 20 years ago, like an entire generation ago. So motion capture is a bit of an old thing, truthfully. Imagine, though, if you had motion capture as a tool in your current workflow. Character setup takes time, but now... Well, you got to realize, Tom, I've done it. I've done it on this very show. What I did was I went to a shot like this where I had a webcam, and I needed to do some acting, like you say. So, you know, my character says a line of dialogue, and I literally just captured it on the webcam, and then dragged it into the background in Blender, and then did the same thing, where I only animated about one, you know, at least as far as movement, only about once per second, and then of course a little more for lip sync. And you're correct, it does save time. It saves time because, okay, so here's the problem you're really trying to solve. There's a fundamental, this is actually a really important point. There's a fundamental disconnect for you, if you're out there right now and you're watching this and you're an animator. There is a disconnect between the reality of a good acting performance and the vocabulary that you have in your brain about timing. Okay? You don't know how to create the performance that you feel in your heart. In your heart, you know what you want, but you don't know how to get it, and there's a lot of trial and error with timing. Now, the process of doing that is very valuable. There's no question that it's useful to go through that process. But if you want to short circuit the process and take the shortest path from what's in your heart to what comes out in your work, then rotoscoping or motion capture can be a good intermediate step, because it allows you to do what you do know how to do, which is just perform the thing, which literally takes you 10 seconds if it's a 10-second shot. So you do it in real time. Why would you not use that as a guide if that's available to you? Right? Um, Anime is a little bit different because if you watch, as I've mentioned in recent weeks, like Fairy Tale or, um, pick your favorite, One Piece, whatever it might be, I don't know, or Avatar, which of course is an Americanized anime. What you find is that not so much in Avatar, but in a lot of anime, it's not really about the movement as much as it's about the pose. Like this drawing is what matters, and the actual animation is not about animating the muscles in her face. That's not what it's about. It's essentially a motion comic, and then it's a motion comic that's punched up with animation tools and effects to make it essentially cheap to produce, right? Because they don't have to do millions and millions of tweens. And what's happened is those economic drivers have resulted in a visual aesthetic that we've gotten used to and like, right? So the economics drove the aesthetic in the first place, but the aesthetic has a charm of its own. I'm personally attaining to that basic charm or aesthetic. So therefore, I don't actually see myself as I'm not doing tons of character animation because that would actually be, I mean, I feel like I could, I think I'm capable, but it doesn't really fit what this show is trying to do. This show is trying to be more like your Japanese anime in terms of its basic stylistic presentation. So I hope that helps. I mean, it's all just opinion at the end of the day, and you can do whatever you want to do. Okay, so yeah, so I'm up to, imagine if you had motion capture. Right. Okay, so I told you I actually did that with facial animation or lip sync or basically close-ups for this very show. I've done it. And for the thing I was working on before this show. So I just haven't found I've needed to that often, really. So Chaplin and Keaton were really magicians, especially considering how new the medium was. They really manipulated it both so differently. The yin and the yang of silent comedy. Yeah, I totally favor Keaton. I really love Keaton. I don't find Chaplin that entertaining, but again, it's just opinion. Some people prefer Chaplin. I know about that. I meant for Alias. Oh, okay, Soda Pop. Soda Pop jumps back in and says, and spanks me. Yeah, Dave, I kind of knew about that already. Thanks a lot for wasting everyone's time. I meant about Alias color previews before rendering. Okay. It works way better. Well, yeah, because you're way less likely to get leaks, for one thing, if you use anti-aliased line work. Now, I am using alias line work, so obviously there's a middle ground there, but yeah, I definitely take your point. So they communicated using movement versus dialogue. Correct, right? I mean, silent movies, come on. With motion capture, that becomes less of a time-consuming technical cost. Yes, he was King Kong, of course, yes. Well, and I've said this before, but King Kong is where it stopped for me. Okay, so 2005, King Kong, the whole volcano of CGI, the stuff that sprang from the Pixar side of things versus the stuff that sprang from, say, the Matrix side of things, more live action versus more cartoony. The whole movement ended for me in 2005. When I saw King Kong, I said, you know what? There's some things that need improvement in this movie, but basically it's really great. And I just haven't seen anything new since then. It's just been retreads of the same ideas over and over and over, which is okay if there's a good script behind it. Good script, good characters, good acting. It engages you emotionally, then fine, right? So I'm sure there's been plenty of movies that fit that criteria in the last 15 years. But for me, as far as the technology driving my interest in it ended at 2005. So the period from 95 to 2005 was great. The level of innovation was off the chart. What we're seeing now that's interesting and awesome is actually a rollback to the old days. In the old days, the only way you could have your actors in the studio is you had to project film onto a screen behind them. And that's actually how they're doing it. The name escapes me, so one of you guys will know it, but it's the new Star Wars show that Jon Favreau is directing. that's on, I think it's Disney Channel because they own the Star Wars franchise. And what they're doing is they've got LCD screens up in a massive warehouse-sized environment, and they're literally playing video on those screens. And what happens is the actors in the scene, the lights from the LED screens are actually causing them to get perfect environmental coloring from the background, which is a lot of CGI footage and stuff that's projected on these screens, and they can just shoot it like a movie. They don't, I mean, it's amazing. It's really cheap. I mean, it's not cheap, but yet it is. And the reason it's expensive is because what they're doing is they're using the somebody help me out here. What's the game engine? It's one of the it might be the Unreal Engine, but they're using a game engine that's linked to their cameras so that when they shoot the thing with the actors in front of these LED screens, when they move the camera, the background moves, because the background is like running a game program where the camera is actually the controller on the game. And so they're getting full 3D motion that they're able to shoot live in real time. There's no green screen. There's no post-production process. So it's brilliant. I got to give Favreau, if that's how you say his name, give him tons of credit, because I think they probably had a tremendous technology investment in making it work. But holy cow, once they got it tooled up, what a great way to be able to put a character or an actor in any environment you choose, any environment you want, and actually be able to have moving cameras and the whole thing. It's really impressive. Okay, so yeah, the animation in Clone Wars, as far as finding the sweet spot between CGI with some stylization and probably motion capture sort of driving some of the, the acting, they probably hit the sweet spot. That's a good looking show, no question about it. It's getting a little old, a little dated now, of course. Star Wars projects, yeah. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I don't remember the name. Oh, you need to see it. It's a series coming by Gilbert and Sullivan composed. Okay. Writer's block. Blah, 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 blah. I can't stand anime with too much filler like One Piece. Yeah, you get a little bit of that with Fairy Tail too, where they drag it out with a lot of flashbacks, and some of the arcs probably run at least a third longer than they really need to. He had money, he made a fan film, and went over the top as King Kong was a fan film. Mandalorian, yes, thank you, Tom. That's right. That's the show I'm talking about. Using a game engine to create the background. Yep. I wish I could like the 2005 King Kong more than I do. I can't help but feel it's overindulgent. The original was spare and clean. Well, here's the thing about the original King Kong, if you're going back to stop motion. Okay. Who scored it? Honestly, that movie, I should know this, but I'm just talking and thinking too much, and I don't remember. Yeah, Max Steiner. So Max Steiner saved that movie. That movie would have been, people would have been laughing at it if it wasn't for the music. And it was pretty much wall-to-wall music. So they really scored that thing to make the puppets, to help the audience suspend their disbelief. It's really a huge example of where musical score can work together with the acting and all the rest to get the audience engaged with the show in a way that they otherwise wouldn't. Because if you watch the original King Kong with the sound turned off, you're going to be just laughing at it. It just looks stupid, actually. It's pretty stupid. Not that it wasn't a great technical achievement on, Harryhausen's part, because it was, but it wouldn't have worked without the score. Not at all. I would say quite strongly. Daily, the insect scene, 2005. The main problem I have with, I wouldn't call 2005 King Kong indulgent. mainly there's the story about the character, which is the filmmaker going to the island and all that goes with that. And then essentially you're starting a whole new movie when they actually go to the mainland. And then now it becomes about the love relationship between the girl and the ape, right? So it's a very strange story structure that is a bit laborious to watch. You really have to hang in there to get to the exciting parts, right? So that would be, I would actually have a criticism of that story from the standpoint of just the original story structure. I think is not the greatest ever, put it that way. Now the dynamics and the excitement and the monsters and all that make it work. They help propel you through the fact that it's actually not that great of a story. In that respect, the actor relationships, Jack Black's character, certainly the girl, really well cast in the Peter Jackson version. Good casting. Adrian, what's Adrian's last name? The guy that loved the girl. On the technical side, where King Kong 2005 literally fell apart, was when everybody was running down the hill being chased by the dinosaurs. You could see where the mocap technology, the green screen work, the marriage of the actors to the environment they were in completely broke down to where you could really tell there were a few shots in that movie that were pretty awful, you know, in terms of just marrying the actors to their environment. They did a laudable effort because obviously that was a big job, and they were breaking new ground in some ways. But the shot where they were running with the dinosaurs behind them, as noble of an effort as it was, ultimately failed for me. It's just because the illusion broke. You know, it's too easy to see that these are people on a green screen. Okay. Was the insect scene? Well, the scene when Andy Serkis actually died, when the things come out of the mountain and kind of wrapped around his head and kind of basically ate him, I thought looked that was a scary, you know, very well done sequence. Okay, so what works? Taken out works better. The insect, see, I wouldn't have any idea what the original version would have looked like. And of course, nobody's talking about the, you know, the Jeff Bridges 1976 or whatever it was version. Everybody pretty much forgets that one, of course. Adrian Brody, yes, thank you. Good actor, yep. The piano player, yep. No, Adrian Brody's a good actor, definitely. So, all right, guys, where are we at here? We're an hour and a half into it, and I don't seem to be getting so much done. So I'm thinking what we will do. Right. It is scary when everybody's getting swarmed by the bugs and the little sucker things that wrap themselves. Everybody likes Jeff Bridges, so there's that. Let's just say I'm actually debating whether I should kind of hang it up and or continue, but I'm gonna go ahead and save this as 548 and continue. So let's just rock and roll here. Save all. This is gonna be scene 548. Now the likelihood is that we've got a background already in place. So what we have is essentially, yes, in fact, you know what we have? This is what we have. Let me find this. We've got to go back a ways actually. Darn it. Where the heck was it? It's been a while. Yep, right here. Yeah, look at this. So there's this shot right here. So this shot is actually what we're about to do as far as TNR goes, is a repeat of that shot. And then you've got this. So what I want to do is actually I want to pull up 501 and then resave it immediately as 548. That would actually make sense. So let's go here to 541.tnz. So sorry guys if you don't like me reusing content, but when it makes sense to do so, we're stupid if we don't. So that was the wrong shot. Tell you what, let's do it this way. Let's go to Tahoma's browser and see if we can find it in the scenes folder based on the thumbnails. Here's hoping. Should be in the 500s. So let's go here. 500s. Here we go. 600s. 528. So unfortunately with Tahoma, this is something you see all the time with Tahoma. What you actually have to do is load something, and then all the. So there you go, Tom and Soda Pop. Here's a bug for you. It's been around for a long time, but it's really stupid. Once you load a scene, then all the thumbnails show up. But until you load a scene, you just get all these blank thumbnails. Seems a little goofy, but it is what we have. Okay, so here she pokes out here. Ah, here it is. I'll bet you that's it. Let's load that one up. 501. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now we may have a conflict between what's in the we are chatty today. 76 for Jessica Lang. Yes, we slowed Dave down with too much chat. I don't mind. I enjoy I consider you guys all to be friends, and it's wonderful to be able to have people that I can chit chat with while I'm getting my work done. Scared the audience is silly. There are some stills. Still say even for story reasons, less is more. Sneaking fondness. Sneaking fondness. Yes, I have a sneaking fondness. I'm thinking. This is such a dyslexia moment. I'm looking at the storyboard going, I'm pretty sure that the edge of the tent is angled like wrong, like everything's flipped. And then I look at the scene and it's not. I hate that. Golly, man. There was some other, I can't remember what it was. There was something I was thinking about earlier today or last night where I'm like, things flip in my brain. And I've really had to learn to to deal with that. Okay, so this is going to be 548. We're literally going to resave this. And now in the storyboard, we saw Mel's head and everything. And we could still do that, but basically, I don't think there's a good reason to. We probably should just use this shot, and then we'll cut to the close-up of him reacting to it. So, you know, why are we going to... Like it's really important that we see the back of his head, right? Come on. Positives to learning Tahoma code. Praise for doing cool stuff. Negatives to learning... responsibility for fixing bugs. I think it's I will tell you this, when you trace a path through the dynamics of why someone gets involved with an open source code project, and then you trace that through to what actually happens in practice once bugs appear, once you've got, you know, the project gets some traction. Now you got a lot of people, many of whom are newbies, chiming in about what they wish the software could do or complaining about what it's not doing right. It seems to me that the dynamics that attract you to getting involved with it versus what it usually turns into within a few months are really fighting against each other. It would be almost better to get yourself involved with the project. Don't say too much about it. Get it built at home. You know, and just do what you want to do for your own reasons, and the heck with the rest of the world. Seems like it would probably be the the more sound course of action. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Okay, so we're going to resave 548. I guess save all isn't what I meant to do. Sorry about that. I needed to go save as. So, File, Save Options, Save Scene As. And we're going to save this as 548, which should blow an objection because we just saved 548. And indeed, we're going to overwrite it. Okay, so now what's going to be different in this shot is we're going to try to go a little further with the plastic tool. And we need to get her fingers in there. So basically this pops up, but this time instead of it like dancing around like that, all of these keyframes can be deleted. We don't need them. Delete. And now I'm going to take a moment and go through here and see what all this other stuff is. So that's Mel sitting up. So he kind of moves, but I mean, should he move and then move back? That's debatable. Most of these animation keyframes are in fact the shadow. So that means that all of this is garbage. Get rid of all of it and stretch this down yonder like so. Yeah, so there's shot number 549 or 548. Save all. Cool beans. Now what we got to do is, in order to not run the risk of damaging the original scene that this is based on, it makes the most sense to simply create a new level for her fingers. They're going to be basically over top of this, and then we'll have to probably animate it by hand to make it marry to the tent as the plastic tool moves it up. So therefore, what we're doing is we're saying here's right here. Gosh, should we do this as a pencil test? Let's go ahead and put in a raster brush for the moment just so we can sketch it. We'll just use our venerable pencil. There it is. And we'll make it red because I just tend to like making sketches red. What the heck's up with that, right? Okay, so the important thing is the hands, the fingers have to, okay, what happened to my color? You silly goose. So the fingers have to wrap around here before the tent moves, right? So let's say, all right, so now we might have a mistake. This is where we've got to check something here. Look at, I think, see, she's reaching down with her right hand, which when we switch to the other point of view, puts her pinky on the right. Oh my gosh. And indeed, what we discover is Dave did exactly the opposite of what he was supposed to do. And we can't flip it because all the fingers are angled in the wrong direction. So delete. Once again, the specter, the evil specter of dyslexia has reared its ugly head. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so now this is going to go boom like that, and we'll just animate it. This is like stupidly simple, so I don't even know why I bothered with the sketch, frankly. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to go here, get rid of the raster brush, boom. We're going to change the color to, well, some reasonable outline color, and we're going to trace this, and then we'll come back and just delete the sketch. Oh, I am such a silly goose. So this doesn't have to be like perfect. We just have to make it look like some fingers. Fingers, I say. There we go. And let's take this color and delete it. And we're going to delete everything. Yep, that's not undoable. We don't care. Fill tool. And then in this case, what we'll do, just because it's really nothing but fun to do so, we're going to go ahead and create a shadow color. And we're actually going to do the shadows the literally traditional anime way, where we actually bake the shadows into our color scheme, as opposed to using a semi-transparent layer. The problem a little bit here is that we've got to hand paint somewhat. Okay, so there it is. That looks good. And now what's going to happen is we're going to go like this, stretch this baby down to here. And now we're going to grab the Animate tool. Boom. And we'll just say, okay, that's fine. So what happens is her fingers pop out. And now we're going to, I think I have the interpolation turned on, so I'm going to see, I'm going to actually put this here and then move this over here. That looks a little constrained. That looks a little bit not quite right. Okay. Boom. We'll let this cache a little bit. Yeah, that worked. Okay, so now the question is, how far up are we going to go? If we refer to our storyboard, I think what we want to do is, Darren T is back. I like him. Tahoma. There you go. Agreed. Tahoma2D. Well, that's why you fork. You know, you fork because there's something you want to do. Tagline. That's Tahoma2D, the most stable port of OT. Program opening up before us. I already spelled it wrong. Tahoma. No, it'd be a lot of fun to have somebody building the software who's actually tuned into what guys like me and Darren want, you know, and are able to implement it. You know, obviously that's a pretty self-indulgent thing to ask for. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can push this to the max. So we're causing a response. So basically what we want to do is probably, let's rotate a little bit and push this up. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get away with this. My suspicion is we're not. This is a great example of the acting thing I told you about. When she moves to here, the whole idea that it flows, this is bad CGI class. Okay, how to do bad CGI. Watch. Okay, looks stupid. That's not what would happen. Okay, what would happen is at least something closer akin to, you're going to grab it and then push, and the push is going to happen kind of quickly. Boom, bap. Okay, so now what we need to do is figure out what we're doing from a plastic tool standpoint. So I'm going to hit the X key. We're going to be in animate mode, and I think we need to turn everything on so we can see what the heck we're doing. And where's our skeleton? Okay, there it is. Alright, so we got to get from here to here. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be stretching the plastic tool paradigm to its logical limits, but we're going to try. So look at that. Look at what happened. This is a great example of where Tahoma or OpenToonz' kind of stupid way of calculating the mesh has actually worked in our favor, as a matter of fact, because you're getting this little jutting of the leather, if you will, or the canvas material that's kind of natural looking. Okay, now we do have a bit of a problem because it looks like the background painting behind it is kind of off. So let's see if we can find maybe a middle ground here, but I'm actually thinking this is going to work quite nicely. Problem being, of course, that this animation key needs to be duplicated here, and then this one moved up so we get the same dynamics with the plastic tool. But you know what, folks? I think this is going to work. Okay, so we got this, and now we have a little bit of a problem, Houston, which is we're going to have to add some more drawings on the shadow layer. So let's just delete these guys, and we'll turn on the onion skin so we can see what the heck we're doing, and hit the B key. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to, as best we can, cover everything up. Oh, sorry guys, I boo-booed. I'll boo-booed. Okay, I'm going to just undo that so I'm not being a doomkopf. So I'm going to delete that. And we had this copy here. and then the movements from there to there. So this needs to be stretched to there, actually to there. And now we're going to animate our shadow by gum and by golly, like so. And then like, get on up there. Well, we're moving on up. Okay, what's going on in the comments? Tomcat, Tom Tur. You guys are all loopy today. You guys are all loopy. My Luna cat, who's demanding attention, of course, of course. He's in. We're snapping loose, just folding like a curtain. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like a canvas, as I say. It's like a canvas material. So now let's see what we have here. Actually, I think that kind of works. One could argue that there's a little bit of a hoopy-joopy right here. But I don't know. I mean, technically, what we could do is make a simple fix. And the simple fix is, well, we'll see. Because the shadow is blurred. So this might backfire. But what I'm going to do we have this? We don't have opacity here. Okay. So I think we need to look over yonder at our effects schematic. Yep, there we go. It's blurred here, and then we've got a level adjustment here. So I don't want that level adjustment. I'm going to crank the alpha. I just cranked up the alpha output back to full. In fact, I'm going to take this out completely. The problem is, ideally, I'd like to blur just the I would like to blur just the one color, but we'll try to live with it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see if this works. I'm going to go ahead and draw a shape here, and we're going to see if the blurring is going to make this problematic. And it looks like it's not. So that looks like it solved our problem. Yep. And then we just have to extend this down. So, okay, cool. Problem solved. Problem solved. The problem is solved. You know how this... Do you... This is the character that he would play from times to times. Artie Johnson. It's really weird. It's like back in the 70s. It was like a club. It's like everybody that you would see show up on the Jerry Lewis telethon was like part of this club that was sort of like the establishment, and they would show up on, you know, Johnny Carson or whatever. They people like Charo. Remember Charo, Maria? You'd remember Charo. This shows how old I am. I remember when she was on, I think it was Johnny Carson, and she was talking about pronunciation because she has a really strong Latin American accent, and she talking to Johnny about how it's important that he needs to pronounce his vowels. Pronounce your vowels correctly. But when she said vowels, it sounded like bowels. And back then, that was like a, oh, did she say that on TV? That was like an, oh my gosh moment. Back, you know, in 1978 or whatever it was. Crazy. The world has changed quite a bit. Oh yes, it has very much changed. It is not the same world that it used to be. The world has changed, and you must change with it, or else you will find out that the world will pass you by. And there will be nothing left for you. Nothing at all. Alright, sorry. For a moment there I was actually drifting away from the German voice towards, actually more of an Indian voice, like the voice I do for, Asher. Excuse me. Charo, yep. And I'll tell you another thing about Charo. Back then, you know, people would look at her as kind of this sexy woman because she always wore those clothes that were, you know, what they were. But she was a heck of a flamenco guitar player. Really, really, really good flamenco guitar player. I'm guessing when she was in Spain before she sort of had her breakout in the States, she probably was very respected, I would guess, as probably a singer and guitar player. But of course, on American television in the 70s, she was almost a novelty character, right? Because she was so flamboyant, right? Now, if you say Ellen instead of Elliot, it's shocking and bad for your career. That vowel exchange was adopted by George Hamilton in Zorro the Gay Blade. Yeah, that I didn't know. I've never seen the George Hamilton movie. George Hamilton was part of that club I'm talking about. You know, I mean, Dean Martin was part of it, obviously, before he died. Joey Bishop, all the Rat Pack guys. You know, it was just this whole community. You saw it on the Dean Martin celebrity roasts. It was all the people that were always on the panel in the roasts. You know, it was like these same people that just kept showing up. And by about 1985, they were starting to die out, and that old guard of American television was starting to disappear in the mid-'80s, I would say. So anyway, we're doing okay here. Did we render this? I can't remember. Let's find out. I just set it up so it would render properly, and now we're jumping back over to Vegas. We're going to smack this in here. So what we're doing is we're getting this shot. So let's kill that. Charo. I wonder if she's still around. I don't have any idea. So this is number 548. And indeed, there it is. We're going to open the sequence. The sequence is going to be played at 8 gorgeous, wonderful, fantastic frames per second. .548. Oh, it's going to be up here. 548. We do not want the interpolation or the resampling. We do not want it. No. Okay, so what needs to happen here? This is very important to understand. From a storytelling standpoint, it's very important that once we see that hand climp up, boop, right there, once it goes up, we need to cut. We got to get right to Mel's reaction, right? So she grabs the blade, she reaches down, pulls that up, and then it cuts right to him. So this is all very boom, boom, boom. Reaches down, pops it up. Okay, and I could see maybe extending this a couple frames. Just a couple frames. Maybe just a couple. See if it feels right. Yeah, we want to definitely cut to him pretty quick. So that's that. File. Save as. And now we're just going to go. Does Tahoma have all the tools OpenToonz has? Ravanin? Yeah, I mean, I'm using it, and basically it's the same. It's OpenToonz. The stuff that's in the most recent builds, some of it isn't actually all that stable yet anyway, so I don't know. To me, they're the same program. The only reason I use Tahoma is because I can cut and paste from other programs directly into Tahoma through the clipboard, and then, you know, so there's that whole thing that I've obviously has been quite useful to me. So now what I'm going to do is cut this to the clipboard. I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So over here on this screen, I've got this storyboard image, and I go right here on Vegas and I cut it to the clipboard. Okay? And now what I do, whoops, I come over here to Tahoma and I go Control V, boop. Takes a second. Oh, there it is. And then my storyboard image not only is copied in here, but 49. Yes, that is what we want. We want shot number 549. This is very good. Or as John Banner would say, I know nothing. Yeah, remember that one? Hogan's Heroes. Werner Klemperer. He was also had a German accent, but he danced around quite a bit. I can't really do the accent right now, but he was a neat guy. I remember seeing an interview with him. And boy, oh boy, was he not Colonel Klink in real life. I mean, just actually quite serious actor. Thoughtful man, as I recall. Let's see here. So we want to change our render settings to plus scenes 549 render. That's what we want. Boop. And we're not going to save it. We're not going to save and render. There's no reason to render because right now we don't know how long our shot's going to be. So, all the mother's names added on the first name. Charo is still around. Here in case is her birth name, typically Spanish. Maria del Rosario, Mercedes, Pilar Martinez, Molina, Bays. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. Rosario, Mercedes, Pilar Martinez, Molina, Beza. I don't know. I don't practice Spanish or Mexican or Latin American accent very often, so I'm not consider myself particularly good at that. It's a complicated chain of father and mother. If you did that for me, it would be Torres de Aragon y Gonzalez del Haro. Excellent. That's cool. I actually had my son Matthew, who's 32 this year. Matthew sent me a bunch of really interesting information about my my relatives. They were actually slave owners in South Carolina, the Bethua family, and there's quite an interesting history there with the family. I didn't know them until 3 years ago because I was adopted as a baby, and I was adopted in the period of time that's known as sort of the black hole of adoption, where everything was a closed adoption, so you didn't know who your family was. You never knew who your real parents were. And so I actually only just met my real biological relatives a couple years ago. And they're they're a super cool family. I mean, really. Super cool. I love them. I actually do. I have so many. I actually have 10 siblings now. I have 10 siblings. Let's see. There's Debbie, Dennis, Sharon, Jen, Scott, Tori, Kimberly, Allie, Meg, Gabe. 10 siblings. So I went from 3 to 10 overnight. How is that not like super cool? That is super-de duper-de cool. Super-de duper-de. Klemperer was the son of Otto Klemperer, the classical music. Okay. Jews who escaped the Nazis. Jeez. Oh, I bet. I've never seen Judgment at Nuremberg, but I'll bet you it's a heck of a movie. Now, I like Werner Kempler. I enjoyed Hogan's Heroes when I was a kid. It was always on somewhere in reruns, in the late 70s and the 80s, because obviously the show was actually in prime time in the 60s before I was really kind of aware. But yeah, I remember I saw some interview with the guy on YouTube here, and just found him to be quite an interesting man. So I think what we'll do here is actually copy this, Control C, Control V, so that we can flip it. And just try to bop that into shape. So we're basically working backwards, in the sense that this is the pose he ends up on, and we're gonna. Okay, hold on a second here, Dave. Let's flip this back. Not so sure. I might actually have to quit soon because I feel like I'm starting to run out of gas, to where I'm being Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm actually ready for a break. So with that, we will go ahead and stop. And stop. This is what we will do. This is what we will do. We will stop. I remember Ed Rothkrantz, is one of the great practitioners of horse jumping in the history of the world. He was actually an Olympic contender at one point, and but he was someone I knew for a few years.
And whenever he would talk, he would always talk like this. Say, give the horse one. Give him one with a stick. Give him one with a stick.
Meaning, take your crop whip and give the horse a little tap on the hiney to get them moving. Yeah, Ed was a great guy. And he passed away a few years ago. All right, I think that's it for me. I'm done. I quit. I got a 25-second delay here on the live stream too. So, Spain has lousy online geological resources. Well, I tell you, here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Allen County Public Library is one of the best genealogical resources in the country. It might be the best, actually. I can't remember, but it's definitely up there. That's what happens with rich families more than not. Generational wealth is typically lost in 3 generations, I think is the statistic. Right. Well, our mom has Jewish roots, which makes tracing interesting all by itself. The DNA testing. Worst part is he wasn't even the heir. He stole all the deeds from the rightful heir. Who are you guys? I think I lost in the timeline who you're actually talking about here. On this daytime there appeared a notary. Son who announced the birth of the child. Who was the child of grandfather was huge. Ah, here it is. Robinine, I think. My great-grandfather was this huge post-Mexican Revolution landowner, and his son, my granduncle, lost all the family money in land gambling. Oh my gosh. That is so sad. Well, you know, that's what I'm trying to mitigate right now. It's one of the reasons why I've involved myself in this stuff. Is because the paths that, there's an alert on PFE. We got to look at that. Okay, hold on. This could be important. Oh, that's Pfizer. We're going to ignore that alert. Pfizer's got a pretty long track record, and they're a stable company. They're one of our more stable holdings, and so I'm not going to worry about the alert on Pfizer. Some of these more aggressive holdings, though, that we found, boy, look at that track record. Look at this performance track record. If you'd have bought their stock in November, you'd have had a 107% gain in 6 months. That's crazy stuff. So yeah, I'm just kind of thinking that educating myself and taking control of my own financial future is probably better than trusting some joker to do it for me. And so far, it's been quite a lot of fun. All right, so yeah, I did, Tom or Ravenine. Yeah, thank you. Blah 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 blah. Stole all the deeds. Yeah, I will tell you, every family's got. Anyway, yeah, I mean Pfizer, they're certainly a good company, a good track record, and we put together a portfolio of about. Oops, we lost our connection.
Stupid OBS. You're always disconnecting. You disconnect and you reconnect and you do this and you do that. When are you going to reconnect, OBS? You are evil. What? What are you laughing at? Valerie is laughing at me. Why are you laughing at me? I will have my way with you.
I told her, didn't I? Yep, we pretty much could go maskless now. So, anyway, with that, I'm going to sign off. and go bug my woman. Go give her a little bit of lovin's because I do love her. Oh, too very much. And I'll be back later. But, you know, good progress today. We got this shot done quickly. This was pretty much a cheat from earlier, so in the last day or so. Yeah, see, this is the problem. Only about 8 seconds. The problem we have right now is we're coming into this action sequence where we've got a lot of shots that it's a lot of fun, but they're real short, so we're not making as much progress in terms of show. Server disconnect when too many people try to sell. It can happen. So, but yeah, see you, Maria. See you, everybody. It's been fun.